On the Rural Radio Network, I'm Dean Erickson, joined now here in St. Francis, Kansas, by the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Agriculture, Jake Worcester. Jake, today we're talking about some of the issues surrounding water usage in the Republican River Compact. Let's get your take on it, being that you're with the Department of Ag and you're, the kind of the more legislative, I guess, aspect of it. Talk about what you guys can do to help Kansas water users get the allocations that they're entitled to.
Well, one of the things we know is vital in Kansas is water. It drives our agricultural economy. It's why Kansas is what it is. And so it's important for us in the compact, in the work that we're doing with Colorado and with Nebraska, specifically here in St. Francis, we're talking about Colorado because the water flows from there, to make sure we're working together and we're all following the rules we agreed to a long time ago. We've had disputes, and many people know with both states over the years about overusing allocations. We want to make sure that we're getting the water that's due to our farmers and ranchers, and so it's critical to the economies of a place like St. Francis, like Cheyenne County, where we're at today, and we need to make sure that we're fighting hard to do that. We're going to continue to do that. We know it's a priority with the legislature. They want us to continue to fight, but we want to capture some of the stories, some of the things that are happening here because of decreased flows, and that's what we're trying to do.
And, talk about with the stories. One lady told a story about they're so short on water with this overusage from Nebraska and Kansas that they can't simply do things as simple as take a shower. Their flow is that diminished. What kind of impact, what do you make of something like that happening here in St. Francis?
Sure. Well, we know that decreased water is an issue for a lot of folks. The stories, of course, when you start talking about domestic water use in the house, those are scary things, but they're real. And there are places in Kansas where the well you drilled that you dug for your drinking water at the house is gone. And so we want to make sure that's not happening. It obviously, if we're having those kinds of impacts at the house, we're having those kinds of impacts to an extreme extent on irrigated land, on water for livestock. Those are real issues facing Kansans today, and we've got to deal with them. The governor has asked us to put together a vision for water in Kansas over the next 50 years. We want to make sure that we do that in a way that says we need to extend the life of our aquifer. We need to find ways to work with our other states in the compact. We need to make sure that we've got water because it drives the economy, it drives our livelihoods, it drives our small town, rural American cultures, and it's not just rural Kansas. It impacts all of Kansas. We're seeing it in Wichita. We're seeing it in terms of water usage there and the water that they need for municipal supplies. We see it in recreation, but we certainly see it in agriculture. Agriculture is the state's largest economic driver, makes up over a third of the state's economy. We got to do it. We got to find ways to protect that, and we're going to continue to fight to do that.
And I'd like you to go into some of what are specifically some of the things you're seeing with not only, the big municipalities, the cities in Kansas, but the rural areas. What kind of impacts is the water problems having on the rural communities?
Sure. Well, it does have a great impact. One of the things people don't often think about, and I think is important, is that it's not just the bottom dollar, or the bottom line to a farmer who's growing corn, as an example. When he can't grow corn anymore because he doesn't have the water, obviously that impacts his operation. But as we start to see that spread beyond individual and to a county level throughout the aquifer, what we see is significant impacts to the communities. Every dollar that a farmer doesn't make is a dollar he can't spend in town, and so people recognize that. What often we don't recognize is this also has an impact on our tax base in the community. We start taking irrigated acres and making them dry land acres. They're worth less. The value is less. Those become of lesser value on the tax rolls. That impacts property tax revenues for the county, for the school district. We start seeing that effect all throughout the community. So this issue is important not just to farmers and ranchers. It's important to every Kansan. It's important not just to rural Kansas. It's important to Kansas in general, and so we've got to keep working hard to find solutions, to extend the life of the water that we do have, to do a better job with the resources we have today. And I'm excited to say a lot of folks are engaged in that process. We saw that here in St. Francis today. We had a good crowd. People want to find solutions. They want to do their part in that process, and at the same time be able to continue to run their operations, to continue the lives that they've built.
Well, and I like that you mentioned property tax a little earlier, because there was a gentleman here that brought that up. You know, would it be fair to say, and your last statement, I mean, pretty much answers this, but I feel obligated to ask it. Is it fair to say that it starts at the top in Kansas when it comes to water, and it just dominoes down from there? If that top rung of that ladder doesn't work, the rest of it falls down?
Absolutely, water dominates in Kansas. It is the most critical resource we have. It drives the economy, and it's not only the agriculture economy, but certainly that's the biggest impact that we see from an economic standpoint. But it impacts everything. It impacts our recreational uses, and what we know it will impact at some point is our municipal uses. We're already seeing that in places like Hayes, where Hayes has acquired water rights 90 miles away. They're talking about piping water 90 miles to Hayes to supply drinking water. These are relatively new challenges that we're facing, and they've been around, but relatively new solutions that we're finding. And I don't think that's the last that we're going to see of that. So it's starting. The water issue is really starting to come to light in a lot of places where it hadn't been before. A lot of folks out here have known that it's an issue for a long time, and we're finally starting to get some traction with solutions. But as that impact grows and becomes greater, we're going to see that interest raise in our less rural areas and in our urban centers. And we know that the legislature's interested. They're asking us a lot of questions about it. They're highly anticipating the governor's water vision that will be unveiled in November, and will be talked about a lot next year in the legislative session. So we're going to keep working through these issues. If we don't come to some solutions and make some progress on the water issue, it's going to have great impact in Kansas. So we've got to stay on top of it.
Well, we'll certainly be staying on top of it here at the Rural Radio Network as well. Thanks a lot, Jake Worcester, the Assistant Secretary of Agriculture for the Kansas Department of Ag, with us today. I'm Dean Erickson on the Rural Radio Network.